This is my 8x10 negative, and I have been shooting 8x10 film for the last year and a bit. So 8x10 is basically the dumbest of the formats. And I can't imagine anyone would disagree with me on that one, because nothing is built for 8x10, really. There's not very many lenses, not very many tripods. And as it turns out, unless you are an aficionado of old Heidelberg or Cytex scanners, there are no scanners that will scan 8x10 negatives. I can scan 4x5 on my Hasselblad scanner, but I can't scan a single thing with a scanner, so I have to actually just use a camera to photograph, a digital camera to photograph my film negative. And yes, I am well aware of the irony in that whole situation. The other thing, just about 4x5 in general, is it's so incredibly cumbersome, it's so incredibly heavy, it's so incredibly slow and ponderous, and I can assure you that the scanning process is no easier. If you came to this video hoping to figure out how you can scan a whole bunch of images in a real hurry, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to help you out with much of that. This is all about one at a time. And then the other thing that we ran into in this video, and that I'm going to happily explain to you, is that we tried, or let me rephrase that, is that previously I had used the 16-shot capabilities of my Fujifilm camera to get a massive, and actually a really quite beautiful file off of an 8x10 negative. It was about a gigabyte, and it was, I don't know, 10,000 by 12,000 pixels or something crazy like that. And this time around, lo and behold, no matter what I tried, I could not get the multi-shot capabilities to work. I have no idea why. I updated software, I updated firmware, I read online. If anybody has any ideas, I'm all ears about whether or not I did something wrong. The camera was stable, and yet, lo and behold, everything just looked like it was not good. What can I say? I mean, the file told me it wasn't, or the program told me it wasn't good, and it turned out to be right. It was just not good. So I had to end up shooting just single shot, 16-bit RGB TIFFs of my 8x10 negatives. So with that said, this is how it works. You have a light. In this case, I have an old tungsten bulb. And there's a couple of reasons why I have a tungsten bulb. One is because they're cheap. I got it for $100 on Craigslist. The other is that the light quality from a tungsten bulb is pretty much 100% of the colors that you will see anywhere you'll get from a tungsten light source. And you can get high low, or you can get LEDs with a high CRI, but they're expensive, and I don't have any. So here we are. So anyway, so just the way this works, we've got a couple of Apple boxes set up, and I've got a piece of white plexi on the ground. The light bounces into the plexi, comes up through the glass and through the negative into the camera. So a couple of other things. Got a little fill card here to make sure that our light is filled. I have a piece of anti-Newton glass on top of my regular glass, and the anti-Newton glass has a little tiny bit of texture in it, so you don't get any rainbow rings with the negative sitting on top of the glass. The other thing that I did is I masked off a 8x10 window on the glass so that we don't have any light spilling around the edges of the negatives, so we can hold the contrast on the edges of the negatives. And basically what I do is I just take the negative, drop it on the glass, line it up in the little window in the tape, dust it off carefully. My gloves are somewhere else, but you're wearing a pair of gloves. And then just because you get the heat from the light, and as well, I'm using a multi-exposure, so I tape the corners of the glass down with a little bit of Scotch tape. Tape the corners of the negative down to the glass with a little bit of Scotch tape, because otherwise the negative will float away. Plan was originally to do a 16-shot microstep pixel shift that the Fuji camera will do, and for the life of me, I cannot get it to work. I've done it before with this setup, and it all worked fine, but it just isn't working now. And what's happening is that when we do the stitching, we end up with weird artifacts in the fine detail, and the photos are soft and really just kind of useless. So. Hello. Yes, hello. Yes, hello. It's nice to see you. Yes. Okay, off you go. Off you go. Off you go. Come on. Off you go. Off you go. So anyway, so I just wanted to point out that going forward from here, and so when I show you actually what the images are, I just did a single 50 megapixel shot, because that's really all I can do.
And I'm going to keep on trying to figure out what to do with the pixel shift. I'm not entirely sure it's even worth it. But I've updated the software, I've updated the firmware, I've changed different lenses. Pardon me, I've changed different lenses. And to no avail, it still doesn't seem to be working. So I'll probably do a video on doing pixel shift and the problems I'm having with it. But going forward, the frames are only single shot. So 50 megapixel, single shot, using, strangely enough, an old Hasselblad 120 macro lens, because the 110 that I was using before, as beautiful a lens as it is, was showing a bit of distortion, and the 120 actually seems to be nicer. So we will now take a look at what I do once I get them into the computer. So here is one of the photographs that I took with the Fuji, single frame, because as I said, we couldn't get the multi-shot to work. So let's grab my tablet or my stylus here, and image rotation counterclockwise, fit it on the screen, Command I to invert it, and then I always just make it black and white because it's so much nicer than staring at that blue. So, and then I just want to crop it. I have my crop preset for 4x5 or 8x10, just to get rid of some of the data. Copy the background layer, turn on your grid, and then I want to crop this. Now, one of the things that always seems to happen for some strange reason is no matter how careful I am, you can see down in the lower right-hand corner here, and it could be any corner, but the image is not perfectly square to the camera. And there's really not much that you can kind of sort of, you know, I mean, anyway, I'm sure there are ways, I know there are ways to make it perfectly square, but I find that if I just go into get rid of crop, go into transform and distort, then all I need to do is just drag the corner down just a little tiny bit to get it nice and square. And I believe that one is a little, that looks pretty good. So just like that. So there we go, nice and square. And then I can merge these two copies so I don't end up with a massive file, because as I said before, this is a 16-bit TIFF, which is essential for sort of smashing your way around when it comes to dealing with images. So there it is there, loosely cropped. Well, here, let me just, I'll make it pretty and crop the 8x10 neg edge out. And what always blows me away, what I think is really funny, is that 8x10 is not actually 8x10 because it always seems to crop really weird. The actual image size is not 8x10, but now it is 8x10. And then I just go in and in curves, set my white point. If you hold down Option, it will show you where it's clipping. And then set my black point, same thing, hold down Option, it shows you where it clips. So you don't want to crush your shadow and your highlight. And then usually go in with another curves layer, and then medium contrast, which I always find to be too much, and then just back it off a bit in opacity. And that's pretty much it. So there's 100%, and it's actually pretty sharp. I mean, I guess you can probably, oops, let me go to my background layer. You can go to Smart Sharpen and find a spot and do a little bit of sharpening. I actually backed off a lot on the sharpening in Capture One because it was getting really pretty crunchy. So something like that actually feels pretty good. And then the image itself is 5200 by 6500 pixels, or 17 by 21 inches at 300 dpi, which is pretty good. I could make it bigger if I want, but for the time being, that's where it is. So image mode, 8 bits, and I just save it out as replace my untitled session. No, I don't want image compression. And that's all there is to it. And then, of course, what you do is you flatten it, you make it 1200 by 1500 pixels, and you save it again as a JPEG, because that's how the entire world sees it. So there you go. That's how we take the raw file and turn it into a final scanned image. Just like that.